So let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. We got to make sure the tubes are connected before we start just rambling off over here. And it looks like they are. We've got YouTube, we've got Rumble, we've got the Twitters, we have locals, of course, and it's working. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we're talking about Hunter Biden's sham indictment. Of course, this dropped. We've been waiting for this a little bit earlier than we expected, actually. I was thinking it might be near the end of September because that was their ultimate deadline. But no, the indictment dropped, and, you know, it's an indictment. It's about what we expected. I've got a ton of questions about it, and I don't trust this DOJ for a minute. Everything they do, I think, is just part of a cover-up, and they would have covered this whole thing up if they could have, but Judge Norica blew the lid off the whole thing. So we're going to go into it because it did drop today, and I got the entire indictment. It's not long. It's just about 4 pages, I believe it is. So we'll make light work of it. But it's only 3 different counts, and it's not a big deal. I mean, it's a charge we've talked a lot about here, gun charges, and the questions that I have already teased out of here we'll get through. So I've got some stuff I want to opine on in this category. Then I have a couple clips and some reaction from this. These are some people. This is a former prosecutor, I believe, who is talking about what the different strategies could be, walking us through some Department of Justice inner baseball, somebody who used to work there. And so we'll see what she has to say. And then I've got some reaction on this one. We've got the Oversight Committee. James Comer, who has been really responsible for investigating a lot of this criminality, is also posting a statement. We'll see what he says. Trump reacted to this. Vivek reacted to this. Kind of quiet from all the rest of the candidates. But Hunter's lawyer is sending letters now. So Abe Lowell, one of Hunty's lawyers, sent a letter to James Comer. James Comer showed up on Newsmax, and you can see this here. And on Newsmax, Comer said something that Hunter's lawyers didn't like too much. And so they sent a letter to Comer saying, you better correct the record there, buddy boy. And we'll see if there's any real meat there. But we'll go into that. And then Joe Biden is asked some questions about Hunter. Of course, he was indicted today. Joe Biden was talking to us all about Bidenomics, I think, today, and about how the country is doing amazingly well, if you believe that. And he got asked some questions about this shocking news that his criminal son has been indicted. And so he didn't say much about it, but we'll see what happened over at the White House. Then we're going to turn our attention over to Big Fani Willis. She had a pretty rough day today in court, which is good news for Trump and the Trump co-defendants who are being prosecuted by Big Fani, who, of course, she is the biggest DA in Fulton County. Okay, she is the district attorney for the entire county. She is the biggest person there, Biggest Fani. Okay, so she asked for a demand, or she demanded a trial be held in October for Trump, for everybody, basically all 19 co-defendants. She said, hey, look, if Kenneth Chesebro and Sidney Powell, if they're filing for a speedy trial, I want to try everybody together. And this has been her line for some time, that they're all going to go together. She said this from day one. And it's kind of nuts because there's 19 co-defendants. They don't want to be tried with each other. Some want a speedy trial, some don't. Some don't want to be tried with other people because of conflicts of interest and all sorts of stuff. It's kind of madness what she's doing, but we'll go through it. So she sent this demand into the court, and the judge came out today and said, sorry, Big Fani, you are getting severed. And the cases are going to be split up. So Donald Trump is not going to be going to trial in October, which is very good news for him. And so this is going to be a weird situation now because we're going to have like trial 1 that we'll all get to watch, and then we'll have trial 2, which is going to be like a repeat of the same trial 1, right? Nobody wants to watch the movie the second time. It's always best the first time. But we're all going to get a lot of the evidence, and so all of her big reveals, whoa, Fani, oh, the witness, blah, right? It's all going to be done in October, and then Trump's going to have probably some time to re-prepare his case and defend himself. So perfect. Then we're going to wrap up the day. The Pelosi precedent of the impeachment inquiry process is backfiring on the Democrats. We'll go through this in a bit. We've got Pelosi in 2019 justifying the fact that she opened up an inquiry into Donald Trump and that there was no vote. She says, oh, we just went through it and this is how it works. And I'm very satisfied with what we've done. And when she was in charge, she would just appoint different committee people to be in charge of the inquiry. And it was all perfectly acceptable back then. Media didn't have a hissy fit about it every single day. But now when the Republicans do exactly the same thing, it's a 24/7 hissy fit. And even Nancy Pelosi is doing some complaining. They brought her out and she says, don't blame me for what I did previously in 2019 and before. Says, now it's all being insurrected by the House Republicans who are failing to follow the principles of democracy or whatever garbage she says. So we'll take a look at exactly what's happening there. And then we've got some reaction from some Democrats, including Mitt Romney. I mean, we've got this guy who's on the floor of the House saying that there is no reason, no basis to bring any of this now, and that Republicans are just making much ado about nothing, and we should just get back to spending more money. Romney, who is also ejecting himself from the Republican Party by Mitt, is saying that there's no evidence about anything that would implicate Joe Biden. And that leads me to ask the question, how many dinners and lunches and golf events have you gone to for your sons there, Romney? What's the big delay here? Why can't you see on the face of it the criminality from Joe Biden? Is it because you were doing the same conduct with your hedge fund sons? I don't know. We've got another one. Tapper's asking this guy whether the House should have already had all of the evidence they needed before opening the inquiry. Shouldn't you have everything before you open the inquiry? It's like, no, dum-dum. That's why you do the inquiry, so you can get more evidence so that you can move this forward. And so Tapper gets into it and asks him some questions. CNN, though, is also doing some fact checking, and this is pretty amazing, because the CNN fact checkers are basically admitting that the Biden family did receive about $20 million in payments. And we'll go through that. We'll read it. I mean, it's just kind of amazing. That was clipped over from Representative Stefanik. She's also got a clip out where she's saying, we got 20 LLCs and $20 million. It's like that scene from Gone in 60 Seconds where he says 50 cars in 4 days, something like that, right? She's like 20 LLCs and $20 million or whatever. All right, that was bad. All right, but here we've got House Representative Mike Johnson, who also says there's loads of evidence. Other representatives like Aaron Bean says, au contraire, and Byron Donalds says, we've got a new purpose now, man. We don't have to focus on this legislative purpose anymore. We now have impeachment inquiry purpose. And so we've got a whole new reason for existing now in Congress. And so all of our letters are going to have a new paragraph at the bottom where instead of saying Rule 10, legislative purpose, it'll say Rule whatever, impeachment inquiry. And so it's like, whoa, things are about to get lit here. All right, things are about to ramp up here pretty quickly. So we have a lot to get to, as you can see, my friends, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got 3 segments packed to attend to. This morning, we had an interesting conversation on our members-only morning stream about Biden. And there's this guy called David Ignatius, who's this shill for Joe Biden. He just writes over for the Washington Post. And we looked at what he writes about. It's always Ukraine. Why America needs to send billions more to Ukraine, right? He's basically CIA, and he's just a mega establishment person. His name's David Ignatius. And he's flipping on Joe. He's saying, Joe, don't run. And this caused a lot of conversation in the media. Brit Hume and others were saying, whoa, if this guy's the first domino, the first one to start falling against Joe, maybe others will start to break apart as well. And I'm nervous about that, man. I don't want that to happen. We want Joe. Joe can lead the Democrats to victory, okay? He can do it. He's not too, he's fine. He's okay. He's got another decade or 2 in him. So we'll just keep crossing our fingers for that one. But that was a fun conversation this morning on our members-only stream. Of course, our home base is watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members. Thank you so much for our members, to our members. And we'd love it if you join us. We have member-only morning streams. We go through other news that we can't attend to here to get our bearings straight on the start of the day. Members also get access to our members-only Telegram group, which is where the chat never ends. It just goes on, my friends. We also have our new website, robertgovea.com. And I'm excited about our new newsletter, which means you can get the news delivered to your inbox every day. robertgovea.com. You just click here for instant access. Boom, fill out the form. You're going to get the reports delivered to your inbox. These reports, so in case you can't watch the full show or you can't watch all the videos, all the segments that we produce are here, summarized and ready for you to read and enjoy and share, of course, robertgovea.com. So thanks for checking that out. Before we get into the heavy lifting, we got to be energized and fortified and nutrified. And one way we can do that, oh, you know, Field of Greens, baby. Because we all would like to lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds, don't we? But we're all a little sick of the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets and all that stuff. It's like, oh, gosh. But we've all been there. We've all done that. We know they don't work because it's all just kind of nonsense. But you know what does work? Eating healthy, especially 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that and the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, I know, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? It's a lot of work. Sometimes you miss it. So let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, science that is comprised of very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. We know that eating well and proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look and feel healthier fast, my friends, but the greater proof is going to come when you go into your doctor's office for your next checkup, and he takes one look at you and he goes, oh my goodness, you look incredible. You've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. So let's get you started. Fieldofgreens.com is the web address. Promo code is Robert at the checkout. The vegetables, status, want to be eaten, so check them out, fieldofgreens.com. All right, now let's get into the program because we have this little scam ordeal happening here. Hunter Biden has been indicted by the so-called Department of Justice by Biden's people, David Weiss and his crew, the same people who botched the entire plea deal operation, got put in charge of executing this deal, and we're going to go through it. But now the indictment has hit the docket. And Hunter has been charged with crimes. Now, there are some comments and questions that we have about this new indictment. Does this even encompass even 0.5% of the criminality of the Biden crime family? Is Hunter going to be booked, going to have a mugshot? And we've got a lot of other questions as well. But we've got reaction from the Oversight Committee, from Donald Trump, from Vivek, and James Comer got a letter from Hunter's lawyer before we hear what Joe Biden has to say about this new indictment. All coming up. But first, let's see what the indictment actually says. And then we've got some questions to unpack all of this. It's not a long indictment. They only save those for their political enemies. This is 4 pages. You see, it is filed in the District of Delaware. And we're asking ourselves about these case numbers and what case this is going to be a part of. Because remember, we originally, before we got here, we had a criminal information, and we had 2 buckets of crimes. We had the tax crimes and the gun crimes. And we had a plea deal where the actual plea deal was never entered, but we also had a diversion deal that Hunter's lawyers argue was in effect. And Hunter's lawyers, as we're going to see here, are going to argue that this whole thing is invalid because Hunter is already immune. But we're in the same court. We're in one of the same case numbers. And it is here the indictment of the president's son. And my friends, this is a historic day. You know, if we were on CNN here, I'd have red banners all over the place, and we'd have a bunch of guests here crying about the death of American democracy or whatever. A president's son has been indicted. If this was their political enemy, I mean, they're not doing that now. But if this were imagine if this were, let's say, Don Jr. Oh my gosh, there'd be fireworks out there, you know, celebrating, but also mourning simultaneously. But we do have to pause here. I mean, my gosh, the president's son, what a criminal. Can you believe him? Just committing crimes. And Joe Biden said that he didn't do anything wrong. And he said that he's the smartest man he knows. And so look, if they're going to rub our noses in it, then we're going to rub their noses in it. I can't believe this has happened in America. I am shocked and saddened for the future of democracy. I feel like the whole country is coming to an end because Biden's corrupt DOJ is prosecuting. You get the point. All right, enough of that from me. But here is the actual indictment. And I do think this is really significant. I mean, this will go down in the record books. We don't often see members of the first family indicted, but this is a scam indictment because this is just one minute fraction of what actually should be charged here. And we're going to see here how I think that they're just going to use this for their own ends. Like, this is not a prosecution that's going to lead to actual justice that is imparted upon Hunter at all, right? This is all just legal gimmickry in order to paper over what they want to do. So here's what the indictment says. The introduction and the background, they say, at times material to this indictment, Company 1, located in Wilmington, possessed a federal firearms license and was authorized to deal firearms. Okay, we got a gun store. FFL license holders are licensed, among other things, to sell firearms and ammunition, and in order to comply with their license, they got to follow the law. Great. The rules and regulations governing these holders of the right to sell firearms is that they have to follow a form process, ATF Form 4473. Part of the form requires the prospective purchaser to certify that all of their answers are true and correct. So if you've ever purchased a firearm before, you know you've got to fill out forms. And they've got to be filled out accurately, and you sign at the bottom, this is true under penalty of perjury and the things, so that they can do a background check on you and make sure that you're good to go. They vet you and then decide what to do about it. So on question 11E, and they're saying that the gun sales company, right, the people who have the license, have to follow the rules. Question 11E of the form requires that the prospective purchaser, in this case, Hunty, certify truthfully that he or she is not an unlawful user of or addicted to any stimulant, narcotic drug, or other controlled substance. In the certification section of the form, the actual buyer, the person buying the firearm, must certify that his or her answers to the question on the form are, quote, true, correct, and complete. The actual buyer, Hunty, must also acknowledge by his or her signature the following, quote, I understand that a person who answers yes to question 11E is prohibited from purchasing or receiving a firearm. So if you're going down the list, and it is just like a list, like at the doctor's, do any of these things apply to you? No, 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 no. Unless you're Hunter. He should have stopped at 11E and said, ugh. But he knows that if he marks yes to 11E and he tells the gun shop owner, yeah, sorry, I'm a crackhead. Sorry about that. He's going to say, well, I can't sell you a firearm, cracky. Get out of here. So he just flipped that over to the no box. So nobody's going to check this thing anyways. So it's saying that he's acknowledging making any false or written statement is a crime punishable as a felony under the federal law, and it may also violate state or local law. And so they say that the firearms license holders are required by law to maintain a record in the form of a completed form of the identity of the actual buyer sold to them, including the home address and the date of birth, right? So the firearm store's got a copy of the thing, and we'll certainly see a copy of that in discovery. So with all of that being true, that is the status of the law, the government says the following, signed by foreperson of the grand jury and brought forward by the two bonehead lawyers, so-called prosecutors, David Hines and Leo Weiss, the same people, mind you, who screwed up the first part of this entire case. They created the plea deal with blanket immunity tucked away in the diversion, and they're the same people in charge of this. It's like, take your job, and whatever you do, you violate the total standard of care and cause a complete catastrophe in your company or wherever you work that you should have known better about, everybody knows better about, and is basically due to sheer negligence, incompetence, or corruption. And then after you've done that thing that wrecks the entire project, they say, well, guess we better give you a promotion, and we're going to give you a bigger job. Now you got to do the whole prosecution as well. You couldn't do the pre-investigation portion of this, the pre-filing part of the criminal case, but we're going to give you the actual filing and the prosecution of the case as well. It's insane. So they are still on the case, signed by Derek Hines and David Weiss, the same guy who either lied to us or Merrick Garland lied to us, is now appointed, look at this, as special counsel. Give me a break. They told us that he had all the powers of a special counsel before, and now they just made it official, so now he can file charges, right? The whole thing's a scam. All right, so back up to the counts. Here is what they tell us. Paragraphs 1 through 5 are realleged on or about October 12, 2018, in Delaware. Hunter, in connection with the acquisition of a firearm, a Colt Cobra 38 SPL revolver with serial number RA 551363 from Company 1, licensed under the law, Hunter knowingly made a false and fictitious written statement, criminal, intended and likely to deceive that dealer with respect to a fact material to the lawfulness of the sale under the law. Lied on the form. What a criminal. Here, Hunter provided a written statement on the form certifying that he was not an unlawful user of and addicted to any stimulant, narcotic drug, or controlled substance, when in fact, Hunty knew that statement was false and fictitious because he's a crackhead. Count 2. On or about October 12th, same date, same firearm, he knowingly made a false statement that he was not an unlawful user and addicted to any stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance, and that statement was false as well. So basically 2 different parts on the form. You know, I marked the box and then I signed somewhere else that it's true. And he knew that both of those markings were false. Count 3, on or about October 12, 2018, knowing that he was an unlawful user and addicted to any stimulant, he did knowingly possess the firearm with the revolver serial number, and he had the firearm shipped and transported in interstate commerce. Ooh. So it sounds like it should be like arms trafficking, really. It sounds like illegal arms trafficking. If Donald Trump had done this, it would have been probably a RICO act for illegal arms trafficking or something like that. Terrorism charges as well for colluding with Putin. So this was a very minor, and there's questions about this charge. Okay, there's actual questions about the constitutionality of this. You'll notice that these top 2 charges are about the form. He filled out the form illegally, promised, I swear, knowingly made a false statement and a representation with respect to the information required there, that he was not an unlawful user, right? Marked the form twice. So you lied on the form, but then being in possession, there's a question about gun rights on this. You know, there's a question of, can they really make, if you use a narcotic drug, they really cannot, they say you cannot possess a gun? That's a constitutional thing? Well, we'll see about that, and I'm sure that's just going to go up to the Supreme Court, and we'll see if this is a valid law or not at some point. So this might actually, like legally, as a matter of gun rights, go away. We'll see. Now, these other 2 charges, okay, lying on a form, this is like 0.5% of what Hunter Biden has been involved in, if you want to learn more about that and read some of his other criminality. And again, just Hunter's criminality, not Joe Biden's at all. We'll save that for another segment. But just Hunter's criminality in terms of his misreporting, non-reporting, structuring his LLC so he could hide taxes, you know, insane amounts of crimes. I think Garrett Ziegler from MarcoPoloUSA.org, the gentleman who was the lead author of this book here, communicated hundreds of different potential violations and articulated a slew of different crimes in there. But they're just a simple form problem, just a little minor thing, like a little misunderstanding. And certainly we'll see where this goes from here. But I have some serious issues with this. I don't trust it for a minute. I do have some initial questions about a booking, though. Is he going to get booked? Are we going to see a mugshot for old Hunter? I'd be curious to see. Is the media going to parade that around and tell us what a criminal miscreant he is? And how rotten he has tainted the whole Biden family, and how we should be shocked about this or not? Are they just going to tuck that one under the radar? I bet it's going to be the latter. Now, I have some concerns about this as well, because we know that the impeachment inquiry is now popping up. And now that Hunter has been formally indicted and formally charged, he is going to be invoking his Fifth Amendment rights all the time. And his lawyers are going to be doing the same too. So if there's ever any, and honestly, I think that the specter of possible criminal charges, if David Weiss continues to have that sword of Damocles swinging around, is that what that is? Swinging around, who, you know, over all of Hunter's witnesses, potential witnesses or co-conspirators' necks, then they're all going to say, well, he's been indicted. Now I'm concerned that we're going to be indicted if Hunter starts spilling the beans. And so now we're not going to spill the beans either, right? So a indictment can chill everybody else from cooperating. And this is just a minor, stupid indictment charge, right? So now Congress is starting to say impeachment inquiry. Right around the same time the impeachment inquiry starts, now we've got this potential of an indictment coming that's going to start chilling anybody who might think about cooperating or speaking out. lest they be indicted. And the DOJ is not going to offer them immunity in exchange to testify against Hunter, right? I would imagine. So they'll just say, nope, we can't talk to you, Congress. Sorry. If we talk to you, maybe we'll be indicted. So then Congress might have to offer them immunity, and the whole thing gets complex. But it is pressure. Also, we've talked about this immunity provision. Hunter's lawyers are claiming that he is immune, that this should not even be valid right now. We're gonna see a filing on that basis, I would imagine. They're gonna turn right around and they're gonna say, we've already signed a diversion deal that means Hunter is immune. Now, the prosecutors, so-called, have said that that is not valid yet because the probation department did not actually sign off on it. But I think Hunter's people are going to say, yes, but the probation approved the original deal, which is why we all started discussing it, negotiating about it, and that the signature and that Hunter's acting as though it has been agreed upon is his conversion. He's actually complying with the terms of the contract, in other words. And so he cannot be stolen. His rights cannot be stolen out from under him since he is complying with the terms. We also have the question about a speedy trial, all right? They are pushing Trump for trial in March and May of next year. Are we going to get a Hunter Biden trial before the election? Are they going to pull out all the stops to make it happen immediately? Is the DOJ going to do like Big Fani and say we want it in October? Or are they going to tell the judge that Hunter doesn't need to read his discovery so we can have it in March? Or sooner? Or are they going to delay and delay and delay? Are we going to have this trial pushed out past Trump's trial for a stupid gun crime charge? Or what else could happen is if we get closer, they'll just start trickling some superseding indictments and reset the clock. All right. So we'll see the gun charge come, and then the tax charge will come a little bit later, and they'll consolidate, or maybe they'll be in different courtrooms, but it'll reset the clock, and then the trial calendar will get bumped back. So they'll accelerate Trump's and they'll decelerate Biden's. They're also going to now say, right, there's already this happening, that they're going to say that, see, this is the Biden DOJ being fair. See, he indicted Trump on one, and now he's indicting Biden on the other one. And so everything is even-handed. Lady Justice has scales that are perfectly balanced. We all know that is total hogwash, but this will give them some cover to make that argument. Meanwhile, this indictment is really, I think, providing cover in many more ways that actually support Hunter Biden, because it's not a real serious charge that he's been charged with. And the question, of course, is, are more charges coming? Where are they coming? Is David Weiss going to think about indicting on all of the rest of these crimes, on all of this misconduct in here for Hunter? Again, we're not even talking about Biden yet, okay? Just Hunter. Is that going to happen? And where is that going to take place? In California, in District of Columbia, who knows? But this woman was on the news. She is somebody who's got experience with these types of cases, and she was asked about this.
The charges against Biden do look very similar to the charges.
Let's turn the volume down before we hear from these analysts.
The charges against Hunter Biden do look very similar to the charges that he'd agreed to plead guilty to a couple of months ago. Is today's indictment just another step towards another plea deal? I mean, he's functionally admitted to these acts by being literally at the doorstep of accepting the plea deal previously.
We certainly don't know whether this is simply a placeholder because the statute of limitations was about to expire, or whether ongoing plea negotiations are taking place. I think it's a little bit of both. At this point, David Weiss, the special counsel, has to be prepared to go in either direction. He has to be prepared to indict probably both the tax counts and this firearms case that he has now indicted. And he always has to have an open mind towards the possibility of a resolution through some type of plea deal. Whether it's a plea deal that is exactly like the one that we saw before, or whether it's one that will result in some harsher sanctions on Hunter Biden, remains to be seen. It does go towards the fact that prosecutors generally feel that the longer it takes to reach a resolution with a defendant, the harsher the penalties are going to be. So in other words, the sooner you come in the door to cut a deal, the better off you are. They don't like to set the precedent of somebody hanging on till the very end and then getting what they call a sweet deal. So that remains to be seen.
Yeah, they call that the trial tax, right? If you exercise your right to review your evidence, or to negotiate, or to interview the government's witness, or you're like the Proud Boys and they get plea deals for much lower sentences, but then they actually go to trial and lose the trial. And then they say, how dare you make us present our evidence? How dare you exercise your constitutional right to a trial by your peers? And then they say, well, because you've done that, now you get the trial tax. You double your penalties, and Enrique Tarrio and the rest of them get decades.
But we haven't seen any indication that the tax charges are going away. I will say that tax counts are a lot more complicated than firearms cases, generally speaking. And so it doesn't surprise me that it's taking longer for David Weiss to gather all the evidence and jump through all the hoops necessary to bring a good, solid tax case.
And they've got some deadlines. They told the judge that they would have some filings all done by the end of this month. So we don't know if they are done yet or if they're going to continue on, but we, of course, will follow as it carries forward. Now, we do have some reaction here. The Oversight Committee via James Comer, somebody who's leading part of the inquiry into Hunter and Joe and their business deals, on the Oversight Committee released a statement. He says, today's charges against Hunter are a very small start. But unless U.S. Attorney David Weiss, who is now the special counsel, unless he investigates everyone involved in the fraud schemes and the influence peddling, it will be clear President Biden's DOJ is protecting Hunter Biden and the big guy. He posted this. He says the DOJ's sweetheart plea deal fell apart after a federal hero judge called Judge Norica refused to rubber stamp it. Mountains of evidence reveals that Hunter Biden likely committed several felonies, and Americans expect the Justice Department to apply the law equally. Today's charges are a very small start, but unless U.S. Attorney Weiss investigates everyone, we know we're protecting the big guy. That's from James Comer over at the Oversight Committee. And so he's saying it's a small start. I think it's just misdirection largely. It's, you know, it gives them cover to say Hunter's being prosecuted. Why would anything change? Why would anything change now that we know about this? They're just going to actually investigate and expand the scope of their inquiry? They're not. They were almost going to let him not plead guilty to anything. The only reason, in my opinion, why we even have criminal charges being contemplated at all is because of the hero IRS whistleblowers. They popped their heads up. They added credibility from inside the game for everybody. All the work that Marco Polo USA and many others like Miranda Devine have been doing for years on this have been validated from an inside man, two of them, plus FBI agents. And so now we get a speed bump in the process. And so it's nice that Comer says, yeah, hopefully David Weiss investigates everybody else. He's not going to. And we'll see that soon. Now, Donald Trump also had some reaction to this. He said, the gun charge is the only crime that Hunter committed that does not implicate crooked Joe Biden. 1 down, 11 to go. 11 more crimes. The Democrats, with all of their horrible, very unfair, and mostly illegal witch hunts, have started a process that is very dangerous for our country. They have opened the proverbial Pandora's box. That's a phrase we use a lot here. And it is possible that the USA will never be the same again. So sad. Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. He's right about that. The country will never be the same again. And they are the ones who started it. I mean, they really came out swinging. They didn't even play around. It wasn't even like one begrudging indictment. They're like, oh gosh, we really don't want to, but like, this is just unbelievable. We have no choice. They're like, oh, 4 of them. They're like, oh, business records. Trump paid Michael Cohen some money. Boom, indictment. Rico, Big Fani. Oh, let's cobble together a bunch of people. Let's indict Lindsey Graham, Perdue, Loeffler, all sorts of other people for just exercising free speech. Their psychopathic grand jury couldn't cobble together a distinction between all of these different things. So they just charged everybody, and Fani selected who she wanted to charge. And the same thing goes on for the other 2 cases in the federal districts. Here is what Vivek had to say. Not a lot of reaction to this when I was doing show prep from other candidates. They're focused on other things. But Vivek says, today's indictment of Hunter Biden is a smokescreen. Don't fall for it. This is a fig leaf designed to deflect attention away from the real problem. The Biden family is selling out U.S. foreign policy for their own family's private financial gain. That's really what's wrong. And we must hold politicians in both major political parties when they use our foreign policy to enrich their family members. The impeachment inquiry initiated by the House against Biden is a step in the right direction, but the public shouldn't fall for the trick of diverting attention away from the true problem. It's no accident that today's indictment comes at a moment when Biden's own popularity within the Democratic Party is cratering. I predict this is the first step for the Democrat Party managerial class to pressure Joe Biden out of the race. Biden will become a sacrificial pawn in service to the deep state that wants to keep power at all costs. And I share that concern. I think that they're going to try to nuke the Biden family out of political office and replace them with somebody else. And so we'll see. And this is the first step. Now, Hunter's lawyer, his name is Abe David Lowell, new lawyer for Robert Hunter Biden, been on the case for quite some time. He sent a letter over to James Comer. He says, hey, James, you misspoke on Newsmax. I want a correction, sir. So before we hear what James Comer actually said, let's see what Lowell is complaining about. And this letter went over to Representative James Comer, September 13th, from Abe David Lowell, Hunter's lawyers. They say, okay, here, Chairperson Comer, writing you on regarding a statement that you made on Newsmax. It says, yeah, dear James, I write on behalf of our client, Hunty Poo, regarding your statement this morning, September 13th on Newsmax. So he's like writing the same morning. He's like watching Comer. Fires out a letter in which you stated, James, quote, we're headed to court more than likely. We've requested bank records from Hunter and Jim Biden early on, and obviously we never got a response back. We'll listen to this in a minute. We will request those this week, says Comer. If they do not comply with our request, then we will subpoena and no doubt, undoubtedly, head to court. So Abe, Hunter's lawyer, says, you know, James, your statement was surprising as it ignores our prior exchanges. He says on February 8th, 2023, Comer, you wrote to Hunter seeking records and information about him, ranging from 2009 to 2021. But in February, the very next day, we wrote back to you while pointing out the concerns about the motive and the improper basis of your request. James, I, Hunter's lawyer, specifically said to you, quote, I would offer to sit down with you and your staff, including the ranking member and his staff, to see whether Hunty has information that may inform some legitimate legislative purpose and be helpful to the committee. He's referencing his own letter that he sent previously. So he says, I'm willing to sit down with you and I'll field your questions and I'll let you know if it's a proper legislative purpose. And then if it is, then I'll talk to Hunter about it and we'll bring him in to testify. So Hunter's lawyer says, Comer, you never responded to that offer. For you to now go on live television and say we did not respond or ignored your committee's request is simply not true. We ask that you correct what you said, but more importantly, we remain available to have the discussion that I suggested some 7 months ago. Sincerely, your friend, Abe David Lowell, lawyer for Hunter Biden. Now, you can see he's referencing this Newsmax tweet down here, which I have pulled up, so we'll take a look at that. But you'll notice that the status has changed now. Okay, Congress was originally sending letters to Hunter saying, we have a legitimate legislative purpose. Now they don't care about their legislative purpose at all. Now it's for an impeachment inquiry purpose, which is a whole different pretext under the law. It's like they put a different power ring on and now they can do whatever they want that the ring gives them the power of or whatever. So it's a new source of authority and that's going to change. And, you know, quite frankly, Congress doesn't give a rip about what Abe Lowell thinks about whether they have a legitimate legislative purpose, right? Congress says, we're Congress. We'll tell you if we have a legislative purpose or not. You just send your client in here for a conversation. And so that was the letter that went over to Comer. We'll see what he says about it. But this is the clip that what caused the reaction from Abe Lowell.
What happens next?
Well, we're headed to court
more than likely. We've requested bank records from Hunter Biden and Jim Biden early on, and obviously we never got a response back. We will re-request those this week. If they do not comply with our request, then we will subpoena and undoubtedly head to court. Now, the impeachment inquiry gives us a tool in the toolbox when we go to court. The strategy by the Biden lawyers would be to try to stall this and to run out the clock and to hold this up in court for a year or so. What this will do is make the judge have to act faster. This demonstrates how serious we are about the concerns we have with Joe Biden. We've already made the case that his family's taken in over $20 million from some bad people in some bad countries that are adversarial to the United States, and we don't know why. Joe Biden never has come out and said exactly what his family did to earn one penny of that $21 million.
Yeah, and you used to run a bank back in Kentucky, and there are over 150 SAR, suspicious activity reports. No one's been held accountable or explained what they are and why. When are you going to subpoena Hunter Biden and drag him into Capitol Hill for questioning?
Good question, sir. Good question.
I think what I want to look at with Hunter Biden, if I could just have one thing with Hunter Biden, it would be his bank records. We see emails and text messages from the laptop where he complained to many people, including his daughter, that he had to give half his salary to his father. We have emails from Eric Sherwin, who was their bookkeeper, that would send Hunter an email saying, who's going to pay for your dad's new roof?
But Congressman, why not subpoena him and have him testify on Capitol Hill? Even if he doesn't say anything, that's going to be uncomfortable for the president to have his son testifying on the Hill.
Right. Well, when I announced the investigation early on, I said we're going to follow the money. And Hunter Biden's more than welcome to come in front of the committee. If he wants to clear his good name, if he wants to come and say, these weren't 20 shell companies, they actually did something. He's invited today. We will drop everything.
Yeah, but he's not going to volunteer to do that. We both know that. But if you subpoena him, he then has to.
Well, he can fight the subpoena in court. It's very difficult. I think if it were easy to get a president or their son in front of a House committee, the January 6th committee probably would have done that with Donald Trump.
No, good point. Although son's different. Everyone always says Hunter Biden's a private citizen. So it's not like you're subpoenaing Joe Biden right now.
Private citizen, but what we found in the last few weeks is he was communicating back and forth with the government about Ukrainian policy, which is a huge problem for Joe Biden. Look, I would say we will get to the point very soon where we subpoena Hunter Biden. But at this point right now, I just want the bank records because we're following the money, and our concern is that Joe Biden was in fact benefiting from these schemes, from these illegal, corrupt activities of his son and brother.
Right. Okay. A couple quick ones.
That's going to be interesting to see if they have those bank records. I mean, if they have the bank records and they can just move the accounts, the money, saying this went here and this went there, and you can literally, with Excel spreadsheets and charts, just connect the money. And Joe Biden's like, on a roller coaster at Disneyland or something, like, I love this life, and that was paid for with Burisma cash. That's a concern. And so maybe they don't need Hunter as much as they might otherwise suspect. But what does Joe Biden have to say about all of this? I mean, his son just got indicted, a truly historic indictment. I don't think this has ever happened in American history before. The Biden crime family should be ultra ashamed and shocked about this. Joe Biden is wrecking American democracy, and here is what he looks like on the news of this indictment.
Mr. President! Mr. President!
All right, not much interest in answering questions. She's lobbing questions at him. They're like, just turn the music up. Just turn it up, all right, to drown that out. Okay, pipe down, lady. All right, so that is the latest. Hunter indicted. Now, I think it's mostly a scam. Of course, we're going to continue to cover it. We'll see what Judge Norika has to say about this. It should still be in her courtroom. And so we'll have updates and more, my friends. Thank you for joining us as we continue to cover this one, and for subscribing and for sharing this video with a friend or family member, telling them we're covering this thing in depth, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, now let's change gears just a little bit and see what Big Fani's up to. because she had a bad day. Big Fani gets severed. The cases are being separated out of Georgia. She had a bad day in court. We're going to talk about it. She had just submitted a motion demanding trial in October. She's got 19 co-defendants. Rumors are 150 witnesses. We've got different co-defendants like Sidney Powell, Kenneth Chesebro, who are exercising their right to a speedy trial. They want trial now, which they're entitled to have, and it has already been scheduled for October 23rd. Fani says that all of the co-defendants have to be there on that same date and time. And we're all asking ourselves, whoa, this is a big deal. That means Trump is going to be on trial in October for a case with 150 witnesses for evidence that nobody's really seen yet because it's brand new. That's shocking. But now the judge has ruled against her, and this is not good for her. Very good for Trump, which means there will be two trials, a pre-trial, the trial 1.0, season 1 of the case against Sidney Powell and Chesebro, but also version 2.0 when Trump comes up again later on when that trial is scheduled. ABC agrees. Bad day for Fani.
In the Georgia election interference case against former President Trump and 18 others, the judge has severed the cases of 2 of those defendants who will now be tried separately from the former president and the rest of the group. Prosecutors say they'll also hand over the names of 30 unindicted co-conspirators to defense counsel for all 19 co-defendants. I want to bring in ABC News editorial producer John Santucci and ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. John, as you were watching, you were saying this is not a good day for the Fulton County DA.
Bad. I mean, Fan Willis wasn't there, but you got to imagine, Diane, she's throwing things against the wall based on this hearing. So let's start where you just began. So first, the team for the the prosecutors down there had been arguing, keep everybody together, keep all 19, because really what we learned today, we're going to have a show this fall, and then we're going to have a repeat performance next spring, which makes it incredibly difficult for prosecutors. A great win for Donald Trump and others that did not want to be part of this speedy trial case. I can tell you, sitting here with you, just texting with some of the attorneys involved in the other defendants, celebrating. Ooh. Yay, victory. This is everything they wanted, was to take more time and slow this down.
Amazing. So, Big Fani Willis, pretty upset. Probably making a lot of noise out of that Big Fani out there in Georgia. And so not a good day for her because the judge ruled against her. Let's take a look at the rulings that came out. First, starting with what she was demanding, all right? She submitted this just a short time ago in September, says in Fulton County, from Fani, she says, state of Georgia versus Trump and everybody, right? All of the 19 co-defendants here. Says here, judge, look, comes here, Big Fani, man, she even capitalizes her name. That's how big she is. Look at this. District Attorney Fani Willis, all caps. Wow, incredible. So she is very serious about the size, and let's get our marker back out. There it is. Fani Willis, and submits this post brief as required. She says the state, Big Fani's office, maintains that all defendants shall be tried together. She says the law favors us, and the criminal justice system requires, where cases are joint crimes, that all of these things justify keeping the cases together. She says here, the RICO charge ensures any trial would share the same evidence and witness. And so under the law, we should put these together. She says, the trial of 19 defendants would be feasible within the Fulton County Courthouse. We can do it all together. Breaking up this case into multiple lengthy trials would create an enormous strain on judicial resources. She says, my office is capable of trying large and complex cases. We did Atlanta schools with 35 defendants, 13 of which we tried together simultaneously. And as we're stating now, we're ready to try all 19 together. Also talks about judicial economy, right? We've got all of these different motions. They all want to sever this. Trump wants severance. Giuliani, Eastman, Meadows, Clark, Smith, Cheeley, Schaefer, Still, all of them. She says the deadline to file these things, and so this court should grant the pending severance motions. Should this court grant the pending severance motions, a consequence would be a cascade of speedy trial demands. Each of those demands could spread out over the coming weeks, and the Fulton County Court could be forced to accommodate 3 more trials on the same facts. And all of our witnesses are going to have to testify 3 or 4 times, which is going to be a problem for them. What happens when those witnesses' statements start changing? Oh, but in that other trial, you said it this way, though. Now you're saying it this way, but you said it on the 3rd trial this way. Huh. So your story changes. Oh, that's interesting. By the time you get to Trump, you want to have a couple cracks at it. Specifically, the trial of Chesebro and Powell, Fani is saying, Judge, we're about to start that trial in October. This leaves as many as 14 days when they could file their right for speedy trials, and says the defendants here have the burden to show why severance is appropriate. And in conclusion, Your Honor, the state requests that we keep all defendants together for trial until the defendants have presented their basis for severance. Keep them together. So this is signed, once again, Fani doesn't really do much work or show up to court. She sent F. McDonald Wakeford to file that along with Alex Burnick. And then this is the certificate of service. So that is what she argued. Now, Fani lost. Here's what the judge said. Sorry, Big Fani. Not working out for you this time. Here's the order from the court. Says, after invoking the right to a speedy trial, 2 defendants, Chesebro and Powell, filed motions asking for severance from the 17 co-defendants. We had a hearing on this, and we read more motions. But considering the record, the law, the arguments of the attorneys, the court finds that to the extent that the defendant Chesebro and Powell request severance from each other, those motions are denied. So Kenneth doesn't want to sit next to Powell. He says, she's way too toxic for me. Separate us. That is denied. Okay, so Kenneth and Powell will go together. However, after considering the parties' filings and without the need for a hearing, the court further finds, Fani, that severing the remaining 17 co-defendants is simply a procedural and logistical inevitability. And thus, the motion to sever Chesebro and Powell are granted in part. Saying the defendants Chesebro and Powell were indicted together, and joint trials are generally favorable. We want to keep things together so that we don't have inconsistent verdicts because you get wonky juries, and you certainly want to promote judicial efficiency so the judge doesn't have to listen to everything 35 times. They hate that. While the trial court has broad discretion in making this decision, the judge in Georgia says, our appellate courts have highlighted factors we need to consider. Is there going to be confusion of the evidence? Could one evidence against one defendant be considered against evidence in another defendant, and the presence or absence of antagonistic defenses? The judge says here, Chesebro and Powell presented similar arguments. Both Powell and Chesebro, they contend their involvement with each other is non-existent, and we didn't do anything together, and that they have been separately charged as distant spokes on a vast conspiratorial wheel. We're on opposite ends of this equator. Both also concede the third factor as affirming that they don't intend to point fingers at each other. They're not going to blame each other. So these arguments cut against severance. And so Sidney Powell and Chesebro are going to be kept together accordingly. The court finds that Chesebro and Powell have not satisfied their burden to show severance from each other, meaning they're going to go through this together. And that's that. Now, about the other 17 co-defendants, Fani says, the state maintains that it's ready to begin trial on October 23rd for all 19 co-defendants, and they should all be at the table all on the same day. Trump plus 18, Meadows is there, Giuliani's there, Powell's there, Ellis is there. While adherence to the unwritten rule that the state is always ready is appreciated, which is like a joke, just to be clear on this, okay, her prosecutorial office is in shambles. Like, there are people who drop dead in their jails multiple times. They have one of the most poorly run criminal justice programs in the entire country, as far as I can tell. so that they're always ready. They're always ready for this case. But I would imagine that there's a lot of cases that they're not ready for. Several factors outside the traditional three-pronged severance analysis demand consideration. So they say, all right, Fani, you're arguing to keep this case together, but here's what we've got to consider. First, each defendant has filed or provided an indication to the court that they're going to be filing severance motions. And since Fani, post-hearing, filed a brief, since she filed her brief, a bunch of other defendants have decided that they're going to waive their right to a speedy trial, saying we don't even want a speedy trial. So we're not going to be bound by the same timelines as Powell and Chesebro. Several defense attorneys point to schedule conflicts, jury trials that are already in place, saying we can't be properly prepared for a trial in 40 days. That's lunacy. We've already got stuff on our calendar, probably in Fulton County, probably in that courtroom. Others contend that a full review of discovery, because there's 19 co-defendants. They got like 19 different defense attorneys. I'm sure somebody's got business in his court. Others contend that a full review of discovery, which they have not yet received, is understandably voluminous, meaning, I don't know how many Washington monuments are in this case, but we know in the other January 6th case, there is over 10 Washington monuments in size of paper amount of materials for Trump's defense to read. They say, yes, it's a lot of discovery. It's necessary. They've got to read it before they can articulate why severance is needed. So they don't even know if their defenses are expected. Like, are they going to be pointing fingers at each other? Meadows pointing at Trump, Giuliani pointing at Powell, Ellis pointing at Sidney. Even if the cases remain together for now, once continuance motions arrive citing insufficient preparation, once they start looking at it and they say, okay, yeah, we are going to start pointing fingers, the court would be hard-pressed to find a lack of due diligence on the part of the defense counsel in so compressed a timeline. In other words, if with only 40 days, I can't tell them that they don't need more time because it's only 40 days, Fani. The precarious ability of the court to safeguard each defendant's due process rights and to ensure adequate pretrial preparation on the accelerated timeline weighs heavily, if not decisively, in favor of severance. So, Fani, you pushed the pedal on the gas too hard. You tried to get it done too quickly. So they've got to be severed. Now you're going to do it twice. Second, to eliminate any doubts about the speedy trial deadline, the court will endeavor to have a jury selected and sworn by November 3rd, 2023. If the defendant is not tried, they say here, what is this? Okay, yeah, the November 3rd is the speedy trial deadline, which is why they want the trial to happen on October 23rd. So a jury selected and sworn. Doesn't mean the trial's completed, and so they're scheduling it for October 23rd. If there's any delay, they've got a couple delays, they'll get the jury impaneled and ready to go. But the trial, I think she said, is going to take months, maybe 4 months of a trial, because she's going to milk this thing for all of its worth. So they're going to get started before the speedy trial expires for the two cases of Chesebro and Powell. Here, the judge says, with each additional defendant involved in the voir dire process, which is the jury questioning process, an already Herculean task becomes more unlikely. Complicating this, 5 defendants remain in federal litigation to try to remove this to federal court. And now how a grant of removal mid-trial would impact the case, especially with double jeopardy, remains unclear. So saying, I can't start trial on the other 17 co-defendants, what happens if the feds do something and we're in the middle of trial because they remove the case, let's say December, when we're in month 2. Finally, the court joins the skepticism expressed by several federal courts that denying severance always ensures efficiency, especially in mega trials. Like doing it all together may not make it actually that easy. Beginning with the logistical concerns, Fulton County Courthouse simply contains no courtroom adequately large enough to hold all 19 defendants. So when you hear about everybody screeching about how incredible Big Fani is, because she's so smart and brave and whatever, the courtroom doesn't even have enough chairs for her 19 co-defendants. Okay, didn't think that one through. There are multiple attorneys in the support staff and the sheriff's deputies and the court personnel and the state's prosecutorial team. We can't fit them in here. Relocating to another larger venue will better accommodate Big Fani. And it raises serious concerns that cannot be rapidly addressed. Now, as for the length of the trial, the state argues that it plans to call the same number of witnesses in its case in chief no matter how the defendants are tried together. Maybe so, but this is only one of many factors that drive the length of the trial. Each defendant increases the risk that the trial must be paused due to the unexpected absence of a party or attorney. Thus, even if the state's case remains identical in length, the aggregate time invested is increased. The burden is increased. We must consider the ripple effects of a months-long multi-defendant trial on the criminal justice system, sidelining dozens of defense lawyers from handling other cases and preventing this court and quite likely most colleagues from managing the rest of the docket. Right, so every other defendant, right, all these criminal defense attorneys, they're going to be bogged down in trials. And Fulton County is a big county. I'm sure there are many different defense attorneys, but that's a big chunk of them. 19 of probably some of the top best criminal defense attorneys in Georgia is really going to cobble up a big portion of the defense bar, especially for 4 months. For these reasons, the court finds sua sponte on our own, without the need for any showing that severance is an absolute necessity. Sorry, Fani. Additional divisions of these 17 defendants may well be required. That is the decision for another day, once many anticipated pretrial motions are already filed. For now, to the extent that the defendants' motions and request for severance for the other 17 co-defendants, the motions are granted in part. Now, other people are still moving to stay these proceedings and federal removal stuff. So those efforts are denied. Here, though, Big Fani loses the opportunity to have all of these cases proceed together. Chesebro and Powell will be joining together at trial, but the other 17 co-defendants are severed. Additional severances may follow. Woo! So what if we get another trial? So Chesebro and Powell is number one, and then we get number one and number two in another batch, and then we get a number three. That would be amazing. Maybe four, because we've got several different severances. Signed by Judge Scott McAfee, Superior Court, Fulton County, Atlanta, Judicial Circuit. Big Fani loses. And I'm sure she's very upset about that, probably making a lot of noise out there in Georgia, upset that she's not going to be able to try Trump and the other 19 co-defendants. So severance underway. Trial will happen in October. It's going to be a lot of fun to cover, my friends. Hopefully you join us. Thank you for subscribing and hitting that like button wherever you're watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, and now we've got some final impeachment business to attend to. The Pelosi Precedent is backfiring on the Democrats. They launched their impeachment inquiry without a vote. Nancy Pelosi said so back in 2019 in this clip, but now they're backpedaling big time. Nancy says, don't blame me that the Republicans are now using your precedent. She was out on the media saying that Kevin McCarthy is wrecking democracy, even though he's following literally her playbook. And so there's a back and forth on this. Kev Blasts an AP reporter, and it's quite good. We've got reaction from the rest of Congress, and Byron Donalds tells us we've got a new purpose here. We'll talk about that. But this is what Pelosi said in 2019 when they were very excited about using their powers to go after Donald Trump. This is Pelosi standing next to the man who has been censured, Adam Schiff, which is really shocking that the Democrats have somebody who's been censured. Historic. Here's Pelosi.
As the distinguished chairman said, there's no requirement that we have a vote. And so at this time, we will not be having a vote. And I'm very pleased with the thoughtfulness of our caucus in terms of being supportive of the path that we are on in terms of fairness, in terms of seeking the truth, in terms of upholding the Constitution of the United States.
Okay, so she's going to proceed to an impeachment inquiry. Historic. Everybody's okay with that on the left. We don't really need a vote. I've assigned this duty to all of my 6 committees, and they're all going to do their investigations, and everything's fine. And so that's what was okay. That was acceptable. But now the media is all upset about this. And so Kev had the opportunity to set this AP reporter straight. We'll see how he corrects the record before Pelosi explains why he's so wrong. Here is Kev. This is an AP reporter walking her through this nice methodology of just asking her some simple questions to see if she really believes what she might write about.
What impeachment inquiry is to do is to get answers to questions. Are you concerned about all the stuff that was just recently learned? Do you have any concern? Have you asked the White House any questions?
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree that, do you believe the president lied to the American public when he said he'd never talked to his son about business dealings? Yes or no? It's all right.
I can answer that.
You can't answer that? Do you believe when they said the president went on conference calls? Do you believe that happened?
That's what the testimony says.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you believe the president went to Cafe Milano and had dinner with the clients of Hunter Biden, who believes he got those clients because he was selling the brand?
That's what the testimony
Okay.
says.
Do you believe Hunter Biden, when you saw the video of him driving a Porsche, that he got $143,000 to buy that Porsche the next day? Do you believe the $3 million from the Russian oligarch that was transferred to the shell companies that the Bidens controlled after the dinner from Cafe Milano took place?
So the testimony says.
Okay, then I go back. Do you think the president lied that he?
But is that an impeachable? Is lying an impeachable?
Well, you want to know. I'm not saying impeachment. All I'm saying is I would like to know answers to these questions. The American public like to know, and that's what impeachment inquiry provides.
Nice. So, yeah, that's what we're asking about, right? We have to go investigate those things because you just followed the bouncing ball from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And she's like, well, but that's not impeachable offense, though. Because, and I understand her point, right? She's saying, well, so you can lie all you want, right? You can lie to people, and that is not a high crime and misdemeanor. But what Kev is saying is there's a lot there that could be a high crime and misdemeanor, and that's what we're investigating. That's the whole point of the inquiry business. So walking her through that process, the impeachment inquiry process is about the inquiry, and that's exactly what Pelosi said back in 2019. She doesn't need a vote. Kev is following the same playbook, but Pelosi is saying that he's wrecking America and not following her at all. Here's what that sounds like.
And Speaker Pelosi, Speaker McCarthy made the argument the other day that, well, Nancy Pelosi set this precedent. She waited a long time to have a vote on the first impeachment of Donald Trump. You did hold a vote, we should add, but he said you made the rules and he's just following them now by not holding this initial vote for an impeachment inquiry. What do you say to that?
Hold the vote later, like she did.
I say that that's hogwash. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I don't know why the press keeps repeating it.
Oh.
The fact is, we said we were going to, I assigned my committee chairs, 6 of them, to
Just
develop
like Kev
the facts, because you have to act upon the facts.
Just like Kev did, yeah.
That's a strange thing to say maybe around here, but you have to act upon the facts. We had a couple of weeks of doing that, a few weeks of doing that, and 3 or 4 weeks, we then prepared to bring the bill to the floor.
Okay.
They've had 8 months of investigation come up.
Oh, okay, so literally, like, that's exactly what the Republicans are doing. Exactly. She just described it exactly. We're opening up an inquiry. We're going to investigate. We do our investigation for a little time, and then we go to a full impeachment. We bring it down to the floor. Literally what they did.
With nothing, and now they're trying to say, well, we're not going to have a vote because Nancy didn't have a vote the first day.
Yeah.
No, we had a vote. We were in preparation for a vote. But again, this is a big deal, an impeachment.
Yeah.
You have to do it with care.
Yeah.
And not on impulse.
Yeah, totally.
And
Like you
until
guys
we
did
had
twice.
the case ready, that's when we went forward. Now, they, again, have been investigating
Just like they're going to do, okay? They're inquiring before the vote comes.
for months, coming up with nothing, and now they're going to say, on the basis of nothing, we're not going to have a vote on how we go forward. Don't blame it on me. Just take responsibility for what you are doing there, and don't misrepresent the care that we took, the respect that we had for the institution to go forward in a way that really addressed the high crimes and misdemeanors of Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, Donald Trump was exonerated twice. Both of your impeachments failed. They're following your exact playbook. Look how, man, she's upset, man. Look at that. And she does not like the fact that MSNBC is upset. She's mad at MSNBC. Maybe the facts don't matter around here to you guys. And maybe you shouldn't even bring this up. It's like it's the most friendly network you could ever possibly be on. And she's agitated that they're asking her about it. And she just admitted that everything Kevin McCarthy is doing is literally her playbook. She just says the Republicans have been investigating this longer via the Oversight Committee. Well, Pelosi, it is your fault, and the Democrats are here because of you. And so the Democrats are really complaining about this. I'll share a couple clips of two Democrats. We've got this guy and Romney. Here is this guy, and this was on the floor of C-SPAN. They're very upset that the Republicans are doing exactly what Nancy Pelosi did. It's amazing.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today because the American people are getting a front row seat at the circus that Speaker Kevin McCarthy and extremists in the Republican Party are unleashing on our country. We are 15 days away from a government shutdown that will impact millions of working people. Speaker Kevin McCarthy cannot even get his own party to pass any significant pieces of legislation. And the cherry on top of all of this is that instead of getting to work to fund the government, they're trying to impeach Hunter Biden, I think, which, spoiler alert, is not the president of the United States.
Wow.
This speaker does.
That's interesting. So because he's not the president, that means that Joe Biden had nothing to do with any of it. A lot of the evidence seems to point to different facts there.
Doesn't even have the votes for impeachment, doesn't have the votes to fund the government. It's unclear whether or not he even has the votes to keep his own job. Kevin McCarthy doesn't even know what Kevin McCarthy stands for, because it sure looks like his morals and beliefs about how this place should run only apply when other people are holding the gavel. So America, in 15 days from now, when our country comes to a halt, remember who did this to you. Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the extremist House Republicans who care more about themselves and their politics than you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Extremist Republicans, right? That's their new talking point. Again, it's not new. They've been saying that for a long time. So that's their reaction. Here is Romney, who is no longer going to be a part of the Senate. Bye-bye.
You know, I know the House is beginning an impeachment inquiry. I haven't heard any allegation of something that would rise to the level of a high crime or misdemeanor. I think it'd be very unusual to actually see a referral of impeachment. I don't expect that to happen. They can inquire and see if there's evidence that shows something else. I don't think they'll find that. I don't know. But there's been no allegation of that. And any hint of that has been denied by the president. So I'm not expecting that to occur.
Yeah, I wonder how many lunches and golf events and phone calls Mitt Romney received and fielded on behalf of his sons, who are also in hedge funds and big money business. The same crap that Devin Archer and Hunter Biden were involved in, just moving money around and getting access and making deals and doing deals. So I wonder why Romney would be so nonplussed about Hunter having dinners with Joe. Maybe because he has the same dinners and he makes the same phone calls. He probably calls his kids and checks in on the weather too. That's why he's so non-concerned about any of this. But the fact is, there's plenty of evidence. We're going to get to it here in a minute. This is another Republican who explains how this works. Over to Jake Tapper.
Republican Congressman Steve Womack of Arkansas. He sits on the House Appropriations Committee. Congressman, about the impeachment inquiry, you told an Arkansas newspaper, quote, "We shouldn't be afraid of a fact-finding process as long as it's a fact-finding process." I agree, but I mean, hasn't that been what the House Oversight Committee has been doing for the last 9 months?
They've done.
Well, they've been working on it,
and not impeachment.
You know, to a lot of people, there seems to be enough out there. Kind of the fog of this whole issue kind of hanging over Washington right now. And I think the only way to settle the issue is to do the fact-finding. Nobody should be afraid of that. And let the facts take us where they go. And if there is no proof of any wrongdoing, then there would be no impeachment article filed. So, look, we shouldn't be afraid of allowing these committees, Ways and Means, Judiciary, and Oversight, to continue their work. And heck, if I was the White House, I would probably want that just to settle the score once and for all, and so that we can move on to some other things. And we have other things we need to move on to.
No, they don't. They do not want that at all. And so this is only 3 committees. I mean, McCarthy appointed 3 committees. Nancy Pelosi appointed 6 of them. So it's like half as aggressive, and they're still upset about it. Jake Tapper can't believe it. You know, Oversight Committee's already been looking into this. Well, they can do both things. One is for legislative purposes. The other is for impeachment purposes, Jake. Now, CNN, their fact checkers are even admitting there's a lot here. You saw this posted by Representative Elise Stefanik, says that even CNN, Tapper's network, is confirming that it is true that Joe Biden's family and associates received $20 million through shell companies from foreign actors, right? Here's the claim. This is on CNN. Claim, Biden family and associates got $20 million through shell companies. Here's the claim from McCarthy. He said bank records show that nearly $20 million in payments were directed to the Biden family members and associates through various shell companies. Claim, facts first from CNN. This is true about Joe Biden's family and associates, but there's no public evidence to date that the president personally received any money, period. Oh, gosh, that's CNN for you, man. This is true about Joe Biden's family and associates, but there's no evidence to date that the president personally received any money. So, right, like, this is the joke that we've been making here. They want a Venmo transaction with an emoji from Hunter to Joe. Like, that's what it's going to take for these psychos. Because it's kind of cultish behavior. It's just like a religion that they're a part of. It's this no evidence. It's the anti-evidence, evidence denier cult. So they want a big check, a big lottery check from Hunter to Joe. They want a bank transaction from Hunter to Joe saying Joe's cut of Burisma cash. Like, even if you showed them that, I'm not sure that they would buy it. But they do admit it's true that they got $20 million. Now, can they ask the follow-up question, what they get paid for there, CNN? What was that $20 million for that Joe Biden's family and associates got? What was it for? What did they provide? Consulting? Okay. So it's like a drug dealer who's getting a bunch of drug money and not selling any drugs. They weren't selling drugs. Maybe they were. Hunter's a crackhead after all. But they're selling access. So something's missing from the equation. You're not getting $20 million in payments for nothing. What is it? CNN says this is true. So that's from Representative Stefanik. And here is what she says when she's explaining this over on the media.
And it's important to look at where we are today and the facts we've already uncovered. Since the start of this year, House Republicans have uncovered over 20 LLCs used by the Biden family. We've also uncovered over $20 million while then Vice President Joe Biden, that $20 million from China, Russia, Ukraine, Romania, going into the Biden family. We also know that according to very reliable confidential human sources that has worked for decades with the FBI, that there was a bribery scheme when it came to Burisma and the Obama administration's policy for Ukraine. So this is what I believe will be the largest political corruption scandal in our lifetime and potentially in the history of the country. The American people deserve all the facts and transparency. That's why we're making sure that we're pursuing impeachment inquiry.
Yeah, there's Joe Biden on videotape leveraging $1 billion of U.S. foreign aid to put pressure on people investigating his son's company. So, yeah, it's pretty shocking. $1 billion of foreign aid by the vice president for his son. Pretty major scandal. Here is another House Republican explaining his take.
But I want to move on and talk about the other big story from the House side of the chamber this week, the impeachment inquiry. The Speaker launching this week, basically unilaterally, not having a vote. When Democrats unveiled their articles of impeachment in 2019, you put out a statement that says, in part, the founders of this country feared a single-party impeachment because it would be bitterly and perhaps irreparably divide our nation. Nancy Pelosi and her radical lieutenants simply don't care. This will backfire on them politically, but it will do serious harm to America in the process. Do those same maxims apply right now as House Republicans, as just one party, appear to be inching towards impeaching the president?
Yes, I would issue the same exact tweet right now, because impeachment next to the declaration of war, I mean, impeachment is the heaviest power that the Congress has, and the sole power of impeachment, according to Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, is with the House. So it can't be wielded for political purposes, and that's what we were accusing the Democrats of doing against Donald Trump. That is not what is at issue here, and I've gone to great pains to explain this. To everyone who will listen, we are following evidence, and we have a constitutional responsibility to do so. Because if you look at Article 2, Section 4, it says that a president shall be shall be removed from office on impeachment of and conviction for treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. The evidence that's come forward that has been developed in all these investigations over 8 or 9 months now shows very clearly that we have serious allegations of some of those categories of infractions. The Constitution says we must do that. We have to follow the truth where it leads.
There's a big difference between allegations and evidence, though. You have allegations. Do you have the evidence of those things?
We have a lot of evidence. I mean, we have bank statements. We have text. We have emails. We have whistleblowers from the IRS and the FBI who have come forward and testified under oath. We have mounds of this evidence, and it is incumbent upon us. We have a duty under the Constitution to follow it. Look, I take no pleasure in this. Impeaching a president is a huge thing for the country. It's not something that should be handled lightly, and it's not. And I assure you that the people on the committees of jurisdiction that are doing this investigation are doing it with a heavy heart. We take no pleasure in this. I don't want to impeach a president, but that's where the evidence seems to be going. The inquiry having now been started, if we gather the remaining documents and there's evidence that exonerates President Biden, then so be it. That's where it will be done. But we will have done our duty under the Constitution. It's a very serious matter.
All right. So it is a serious matter. The Republicans are after it, and they're creating some energy around it. The Democrats are starting to panic a little bit. This is a fun conversation from Aaron Bean, a representative who has the word of the day for us. Au contraire, my friends. Au contraire. Here's what he says.
It's very alarming. And for KJP to say there's no evidence, au contraire, there is lots of evidence. And the lines and the dots continue to be connected. Today, there is a little behind the scenes closed door meeting of those three superstars that have connected so many dots, Smith, Comer, Jordan, and they're going to be charged to continue to connect those dots. And it's every week it seems like there's another dot connected, and it's just alarming. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, but what are you going to do in terms of your conference, your membership? We know that there are some Republican congressmen who have said you're not there yet. Look, we've got a graphic right here. These are the Republicans who have publicly stated that they do not support an impeachment inquiry.
All right, so shout out. If you are in one of these states, your congressman might be insurrecting America by failing to produce support for the impeachment. Colorado, Ohio, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, and New York. Ken Buck, Dave Joyce, Don Bacon, Brian Fitzpatrick, and Mike Lawler from New York. These are the people who are so dense that they can't figure out what evidence looks like. They claim to be smart people, but they don't understand direct evidence, circumstantial evidence. They don't understand how political processes work, apparently. They need direct payments and Venmo transactions.
That's Ken Buck of Colorado, Dave Joyce of Ohio.
I already read them. Thanks.
Forward with this impeachment inquiry. An inquiry is the best of both worlds because it says, let's take the next step. Let's take the next step and see, because there's so much smoke, Maria, so much smoke. You don't have 20 shell companies except for a reason to hide and play the shell game. You don't have over 5,400 fake emails where the president himself is talking about Hunter's business dealings when he said what over and over again, I've never talked to my son about the Biden crime family dealing. So there is so much smoke here, Maria, and this is a great step by Kevin McCarthy to say, let's go and see where this evidence leads, and that's what we're going to do.
So one of your members told me he wants to see Joe Biden's bank records. Are you going to be able to get that? Are you going to be able to get the bank records that would show an actual deposit of $5 million from the Burisma guy who said $5 million to one Biden, $5 million to another Biden? That's how we keep ourselves protected, according to a whistleblower testimony. What specifically does this inquiry enable you to get that you haven't gotten yet?
Well, it narrows the focus to high crimes and misdemeanors. And Maria, taking money from a foreign adversary like Communist China, Burisma, Ukraine, taking money and doing their work, turns out that's a high crime and misdemeanor.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to do. We want to focus our efforts to see what's really here. I can tell you this. I can tell you they have stonewalled each and every turn, have denied everything until that dot is connected, and they go, oh, and they try to explain it. So come clean, Biden family. Show us your records. If there's nothing to see here, but you just saw the president's press secretary blow up when people have legitimate questions of why the president has suddenly has become a multi-millionaire being on a government salary.
That's right. Karine did get a little bit upset about that. She said, that is a fact. There is no collusion or evidence of Hunter and Joe. That's a fact, Jack. And of course, she was not happy with the media questions. Now we've got Byron Donalds, who's going to wrap it up for us. He's got a new purpose. And I really think this is what we're going to see in terms of a mechanical change here. We read a lot of letters here. We always get to the final paragraphs of our congressional letters, and there's always that final block. It says, we're Congress. We've got Rule 10 or Rule 7 or whichever rules they're referencing at the time, depending on the letter. And we have broad legislative authority given to us by the Supreme Court, and they reference the cases, right? That whole paragraph now is going to be replaced. It's not legislative purpose. The source energy power is coming from impeachment, which is a different portion of the Constitution than oversight. And this is the legislative purpose oversight. So this is Byron Donalds explaining that and saying we're just marching forward ahead.
Well, first of all, the reason why Speaker McCarthy started the impeachment inquiry is because now there is a legislative purpose to the request of information and potentially subpoenas issued to members of the Biden family. And that purpose is that the House has now started an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. That is the purpose. So now that the Speaker's made that declaration, we now have actually broader authority to make these subpoenas if the White House and the President decide that they want to fight us in court on said subpoenas. I will also add this. I personally think that if, with all the information that has come out and members of the House are now getting more into the details about what's been going on in these investigations, I think the votes are there if we have to go to the floor personally. But we have that authority now. And I will also add, Larry, Nancy Pelosi did the very same thing. She started an impeachment inquiry with no vote of Congress. It was only that they actually went back and got a vote later down the line.
Sorry, Nancy. You're the cause of all of this. Republicans are just following your playbook, au contraire to Karine and to Pelosi and others. The Pelosi precedent is now backfiring. The Republicans are going to play their game. And this actually brings, I think, a little bit of clarity to their strategy. They can just do exactly what Pelosi did because she ultimately ended up bringing impeachment. And they can do the same thing here for the prosecution of Joe Biden for his crimes against America. And so, my friends, we will continue to cover this. There's going to be a lot more to come. Impeachment season. We're looking forward to all of the impeachment purpose letters. Hopefully you join us as we continue to cover. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for not hitting the fade out button and for joining us on the next one. We'll look forward to seeing you there. All right, my friends. That is it for us on the day. We covered some good ground. Nancy Pelosi setting us up for some nice tactics moving forward. We've got Big Fani gets her cases severed, so she's not having a good day in court today, making a lot of noise out there in Georgia. Ugh. We've got Hunter got indicted. Now, this is such a joke. We're going to continue to cover it. It's going to be fun to see what Judge Norika says about it and whether we get a booking photo from Hunter. Time will tell. But now, my friends, let's hear what you have to say about this. Of course, we're going to go over to our members-only after party at watchingthewatchers.locals.com to debrief everything we just talked about here in a minute. We also have our new website. You can sign up for our daily newsletter over there, robertgovea.com, so that if you miss anything here, the show reports are delivered to your inbox, so we stay connected. I'd love it if you signed up. Watchingthewatchers.locals.com is where we're going, along with our members. And starting off the day is Dolphin Fan. is the man, bringing in 5 new members. Man, we're grateful for that. Thank you, Dolphin. So who's coming in? Will P. Patriots coming in. Luda Carson Plays is coming in the house. Brunk Dartender is here. Yeah, pretty brunked over there, I can tell. Kitchen Mortician all coming in, courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man. Very much appreciate you, Dolphin. Thanks for sending that one in. We've got this one coming in from MAGA Hat Stay. Says 13 cases in different states to take Trump off the ballot. There's an attorney retained by the RNC involved in the scheme. Yeah, I mean, I know that this is happening. I think it's going to be a lot more than 13. And doesn't surprise me that there's some Republicans involved because they don't like Trump either. Thank you, MAGA Hat. This one says, Trump to do an interview on Meet the Press. Hope it doesn't get him into another indictment for words. It probably will. Yeah, they'll probably charge him again. I mean, because 4 indictments hasn't stopped him. Maybe these goofballs will try another 4 or 5 indictments. Maybe it'll be half a dozen. Any day now. We'll see. Thanks, MAGA Hat. He had an interview with Megyn Kelly, which I have not watched yet. I think that dropped today. Looking forward to watching that. I like Megyn Kelly. We've got this one from Voice. Says, oh my gosh, Voice is bringing in 10 new members. Thank you, Voice. And so, hey, YouTube members, anybody who's coming in courtesy of Dolphin or from Voice of the People, grab the Telegram link on YouTube, navigate over to the community tab section, scroll down a couple posts, and grab the Telegram link. Coming in, Lost Cause, Rebecca J, Different Kind of Animal. We got Vin Yoda, Sue's Mad, Nick, Kathy B, Line Theory, Barcaro, and Zach Guy coming in courtesy of Voice of the People in the house. Voice always joins us for our members-only morning stream. And Voice, we're grateful for you. Thanks, brother. We got this from Raider Gaines. Says, just curious, Biden sending a letter to the media influencing how they cover stories. Isn't that a violation of U.S. code? Who enforces U.S. code? Well, it's Biden's DOJ, really. I mean, the U.S. Attorney's Office does. So the executive branch enforces the law. So that would be Biden. And is it a violation of the law? I mean, probably not. I mean, if Trump did it, it definitely would be. They would find something for it. But in reality, no, not really. Maybe unethical. It's totally... You might be able to find a criminal charge like improper pressure from a public official or like extortion or something like that. You know, I don't think it would rise to that level. I think it's highly unethical. I think it's disgusting. I think when the FBI was doing that or when the White House was doing that, it was reprehensible. And maybe it should be illegal, but I'm not sure that it is. I mean, you could theoretically sue them did Ian Sams commit a crime by sending the memo? I don't think so. Could you sue them maybe for trying to infringe on your rights, for trying to suppress your speech, for trying to... yeah, but I don't think, you know, what kind of standing would you have and what kind of damages could you prove? It would be a long shot. MAGA Hat Stays says Mitt's son was on the board of maybe Burisma. I don't think it was Burisma. I think I looked into that at one point. I don't think it was Burisma, but he's definitely a hedge fund guy. That's for sure. Mitt is a hedge fund guy. His kids are hedge fund people. And, you know, they just do the same crap Hunter was doing. We got this from T. Lewis. Hello, Rob. Hello, my fellow watchers. Hope everyone is having a wonderful evening. Same to you, T. Lewis. Thanks for being here, man, and thanks for saying hello. And look at that kitty cat over there. Beautiful. Thanks for saying hello. Hope you're having a beautiful evening as well, wherever you're tuning in from. Catherine Rex says, I have arrived. You may continue. All right. Okay, now we're going to go back to the real show starting now. Thanks, Catherine. We got Virgil Lorenzo is in the house as a supporter. Welcome aboard, Virgil. Thanks for coming aboard. We'll see you in the members-only after party if you grab the Telegram link. Otherwise, we'll see you for our members. We do member-only streams in the morning. We'll be here tomorrow to do one. And Saturday, we do Saturday shows. And we do fun stuff, so check us out. Hey, Tim Reynolds is bringing in 5 new people. Thank you, Tim. Tim Reynolds in the house, a member in bringing in Vox Guitars Rock, Shadow Axe Band, Twice Upon a Time, Pam Lamp, and Prince Vibes coming from Tim Reynolds. Thank you very much, Tim, for inviting these new members in, and welcome aboard new members. Michael Swade says the firearms charges are unconstitutional under Bruin. They will ultimately be thrown out. The DOJ knows this from Michael Swade. Yeah, that third possession charge, right? Hunter's first two charges were form charges. The third one was possession. Can you really, under the Second Amendment, prohibit somebody who may have used narcotic drugs from owning a firearm? And who gets to enforce that? What's the standard? Isn't that kind of an illegal prohibition on your Second Amendment? Yeah, probably unconstitutional. What if it goes up to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court rules that in Hunter Biden's case, our firearm rights are restored? Wouldn't that be fun? Hunter Biden's responsible for stronger firearm rights all across America. Wouldn't that be fun? Supreme Court agrees with us. It'd be fun to read. We got Pan-Seared Ribeye says, I'm worried that if Hunter testifies at the impeachment inquiry, he'll get automatic immunity by the Dems on the committee. Yeah, I don't know how immunity works, whether you need a full vote or like a committee vote or how that would work. My question is, would you rather, would you grant Hunter immunity if you got to expose everything so that you could see everything, right? You could see Biden and everybody. Would you grant him immunity in exchange for that? I don't know. That'd be if he was an open book. Like if you say, look, man, we're going to do a free talk, which is the thing that happens in criminal law. We're going to give you immunity, but you got to tell us everything. And you can't lie. You got to give us everything. Total immunity for Hunter, but he's got to dish the goods on the whole operation, the whole DNC operation, all of his prior people, all of everything. Would you make that trade? I don't know. I have to consider it because there's a lot in here. I'm sure the guy's like a good, guy's got a lot of stuff there. All right, Pan-Seared Ribeye. We got Fred says, hey guys, I just bought the Marco Polo laptop book. Woo! From Fred. Yeah, it's there. It's available. MarcoPoloUSA.org. And hey, by the way, on this, I really want to pause on this. So they just officially got sued as of yesterday. Okay, so MarcoPoloUSA.org is where you need to go. They just got sued for $60 million, I believe, by Hunter and his lawyers. So I have been in contact with Garrett about that, and there will be more to talk about that. And we'll bring you, of course, the latest on that. But make sure you're already following him if you're not. All the Marco Polo accounts. He's on Telegram, Marco Polo. Garrett Ziegler is on Telegram. Marco Polo is on Twitter. And you can support them by going to MarcoPoloUSA.org. Get a copy of the book, make a donation, support these people because they are under attack from the Biden crime family, being sued for just reporting the truth, doing work that the media should be doing. They're actually doing, and they're getting sued for it. And they don't have, billionaire backers. So this just broke yesterday, and I still want to make sure that I'm not stepping on anybody's toes when we talk about it. So I've reached out to Garrett, and we're talking. So we'll figure it out, but make sure you're supporting them, all right? Make sure you're following them. They are at the forefront of this thing, and I retweeted. Garrett sat down with Carrie Lake to talk about it. So it's going to be very cool to continue to support them, but they're at the forefront of this. So make sure you're supporting them. And thanks, Fred, for the reminder on that one. MarcoPoloUSA.org. Wendy K says, my question is, what happened to the special counsel for Joe Biden? He went into hiding and hasn't been heard from since? Pretty much. He's probably sipping Mai Tai somewhere on a beach somewhere. But yeah, pretty quiet from him. And Wendy, we went back and we looked at the actual expenditures that they were expensing. I think it was like $1 million a month. Is that what it was? It was a lot. It was like 10 times the amount of money that was spent on Jack Smith's special counsel versus Robert Hur's special counsel, which is Joe Biden's special counsel. And it's not even the same category. It's like 10 times the amount of money, staff, everybody. It's like a joke. Dan says, I thought a speedy trial is an option for the defense only. Why are prosecutors pushing a speedy trial? Is this not illegal? Well, so it kind of depends on who you're asking about. So I think prosecutors were pushing for a speedy trial because the defendants were pushing for a speedy trial. So what the prosecutors do not want are two trials. So I think they would have been okay either way. Like they would have been okay with a speedy trial or a not speedy trial, but they just really wanted one. Now that they've got two of them, they're concerned. So the fact that the judge was granting Kenneth and Chesebro the October trial date, Fani was saying, we've got to pull everybody up to that. And I don't think that's illegal or anything like that. Like, she can make the argument. I think it's a bad argument because they need discovery. And so they need their due process, right? I would argue it's a due process violation to not give them the time they need. But I don't know that it would be illegal for her to push for a speedy trial or for her to say that it falls within something that other defendants are already getting. So I think that's what it was. I don't think she was saying that they had to exercise their right to a speedy trial first. It was just a response that they should be bundled. She didn't want them unbundled, in other words. But it's a very good question, Dan. And I appreciate it. We got this one from Dan in the house. Speaking of Dan, thanks, Dan. Bringing in Connor, bringing in Mr. K, bringing in T. Ree, bringing in Rob A, and James H, coming in courtesy of Dan the Man on YouTube. Wendy says smoke and mirrors. Don't know what segment this was a part of. Probably the indictment stuff. Yeah, probably the indictment. Smoke and mirrors, meaning we're not going to get much out of that indictment. And it's just probably to make themselves feel good and to make it look good. But we know it's just a cover up for their final end game. Wendy K says Fani has been promoted to her highest level of incompetence. She is the biggest Fani in Georgia. I don't think it could be higher. And we can't even fit her Fani in the courtroom with all of her staff. Here, personally grow into this Kool-Aid, has been a member for 4 months. Man, growing into Kool-Aid. Thanks for being here. Almost halfway to a baby. Says, hey, easy on the eardrums with these sound source changes, or I'm having my bachelor party in Vegas, Robert. Yeah, I try to manage the audio the best I can. So what happens is I pull the clips from all different sources. So the audio is just, it is what it is, you know. And I don't have time or a team to normalize the audio across all the levels. So it is kind of wonky. In an ideal world, it would not be. I try to deal with that by having a physical knob right here that I can adjust very rapidly. But sometimes I miss it, and sometimes it blows out the eardrums. So it's good. It's good for you a little bit to loosen things up in there. You know, sometimes it's like clearing out some gunk in there. Maybe think of it that way. Positive power of positive thinking. But I do try to handle it here. And I've had some people send some really great suggestions in. So if you've sent me a suggestion about how to normalize audio, I very much appreciate it. But it's probably not going to happen because I can't normalize 20 clips a day and then do the show. So I try to make it work, but it's where I'm at right now. But thanks for the comment. We've got this one from F the Magician. Says, isn't requiring confession of criminal drug use to purchase a gun violation of not just the Second Amendment, but also Fifth? Well, you don't have to fill that form out, right? You don't have to fill it out. So if you don't want to testify, like if you don't want to mark yes on there, you don't have to mark yes. So you're not compelled to incriminate yourself. So they would just say, just don't fill the form out. And there are other ways to go buy firearms, right? So you don't actually have to fill the form out. But if you want to buy from a licensed firearms dealer in that state, then you got to. So good question. 51K says, if a case has multiple defendants being tried simultaneously, is it legal for their lawyers to confer with each other to come up with a strategy to benefit all of them? Yes, it is. To like gang up on the prosecution, have a primary goal of client acquittal with a secondary goal of group acquittal? Good questions, yeah. So, of course, every lawyer has a primary ethical responsibility to their client. So they can't, you can't, unless your client's in on it, right? Unless your client's like, I'll take the fall for this, like I'll take a plea deal and I'll testify, or I'll go to trial and I'll testify this way. Yeah, you can definitely, you can't coach your witnesses on what to say. So you can't be like, okay, you're going to talk about this and this and this and only this. And when I ask you this, here's the answer that I want from you. So like you can't manufacture it. But definitely, if the lawyers are like, hey, what's your guy testifying about? What's his strategy? What's he doing? Who's going to this? Absolutely, right? You can communicate about that. But if there ever becomes a point, here's the rub. If there ever becomes a point when like the co-defendant team is working together, what the government will often do is they'll try to crack the co-defendant shell. So they'll go to a co-defendant and they'll say, look, if you plead guilty and you testify, like A, if you testify against B and C, we're going to give you a smoking plea deal, right? That lawyer has to take that plea deal to that defendant and communicate it to him. If that defendant does decide to take that plea deal, boom, now there's a conflict of interest that immediately exists, and that really wrecks the whole co-defendant process. So they try to crack them that way, and it works a lot. Right? So they'll give somebody a probation deal in exchange for testifying against the other people. And then now those lawyers are all adversarial against one another. And so it cracks the unity there. But yes, they can work together and you'll see it. I mean, I think they probably have already been doing that at length in the Georgia cases. T. Lewis says, hi, Rod. Is there any word yet from Jim Jordan responding to the reply from Big Fani? Not that I have seen. Yeah, Big Fani wrote that barn burner of a letter over to him, and we have not seen Jordan respond yet, but I would certainly look forward to that. Should be fun. Salty says, Nancy Pelosi was in Washington, D.C. taking a picture with JFK, John F. Kennedy, when he was still vertical. That's how long she's been a swamp creature. Oh, like the JFK. I didn't realize that. Yeah, Bill Clinton had a handshake photo with him, too. Good to see you, Salty. Over on the Rumbles, we got Pinochet's helicopter Taurus. What's up, Pinochet? Says, it's alarming how accepting media is of the left lying. They accept it. They defend it. They advocate for it. They bathe in it. It's gross. Pinochet says, they'll do less damage with the government shutdown. Yeah, that's kind of my take on it. All right, perfect. You guys will stop spending, stop starting new wars. And the border won't really change at all. So whatever. John McGarvey says, hi, Rob. Hey, John. How are you, man? Says, salutation, Robert. Salutations back to you, John. Thanks for the lovely donos today and for being a nice mod. And hey, that's you in the mugshot. John's a mugshot. John, you're in good company, brother. You're with our former president. Salty Sarge says, Mitt Romney made his wealth by being a corporate raider. Right, exactly. A vampire on companies. Mitt, thank you for very little for your service, and don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you on the way out. For Mitt Romney from Salty Sarge. Yeah, he did, right? That's all they did. They were hedge fund guys. They'd go in, buy assets, and sell them. And it was, his sons are doing it. The Romneys were trying to get, the Bidens were trying to get into it. And they did. K. Bean is here. Says Joe Rogan will get his copy of the Marco Polo report on Monday. We'll see. That's awesome, K. Bean. So K. Bean looked up the address for Rogan and sent Joe a copy of the report. Man, I hope he gets it, and I hope he reads it, and I hope he invites Garrett Ziegler onto the show. How cool would that be, man? That would be awesome to get Garrett on Joe Rogan. Let's do that, man. Let's get Garrett on Rogan. That's a great idea. Could you imagine? Bring the report, go through the whole thing. Garrett Ziegler on Rogan. And they could show the whole laptop, right? Pull it up. Hey, Jamie, pull that crap up there. Yeah, pull up page 95 with the foot job. Pull it up on the screen. All right. I like it, K-Bean. I like it. We got crashes here. Says, Rob, son number 3 and his wife just bought a house in Representative Joyce's district. My son, I might add, is an avid constitutional Republican. He is howling at the moon in anticipation of calling the non-seeing representative. Praise God for our kids. Indeed, praise God, crash to contrary for your kids. And maybe one day little Robbie Jr.'s too. We'll see. But this is good news. Yes, call your congressman and tell these people to stop being losers. Jigam is here saying, Vientica says, quote, this man, Don Bacon, is a disgrace to his name. Don Bacon is a disgrace to his name. How dare he sully the name of Bacon? Everyone who agrees, hit the like button. courtesy of Jigam, that is Vientikis, hitting that like button. And yeah, there was a congressman with bacon in the last name. How dare he? Trevelyan Gale says, Rob, you're an intelligent man. Stop insulting ignorance. Those five rhino holdouts are joined at the hips with the Biden. Trevelyan Gale. Thank you, Trevelyan. I'll try to remember that one. I'll do my best. I like it. Trevelyan Gale in the house. Yes. Okay. So the five rhino holdouts, you're saying they're not just dum-dums. Like, they can see it here. They're just bought and paid for. They're already on Team Biden. They're already just acting as speed bumps for the Republicans. Yeah, you're probably right about that. Yeah. Are they that dumb? Are they really that dumb? They could be that dumb. I don't know. But you're probably right. They're probably just bought out. We've got Bonnie is in the house. Bonnie, so good to see you. Says today was a good day for our side. No doubt about that. Fani got her booty spanked. We have Hunter got indicted. And even if it's kind of a sham indictment, it's still like, hey, that's Hunter got indicted. The first president's sons got indicted. Like, historic. So that's good. And then impeachment fury is moving forward on the back of Nancy Pelosi's precedent. All good stuff, man. All good stuff. Good days ahead. We got Isaac Bowles chiming in. Says, I know you're busy, but I wish you had the time to also cover A.G. Paxton. He's the only MAGA loyalist state AG in the country, and he's getting railroaded. I thought it was going better for him today. It's going to be hard for me to fit that in. I mean, I have enough trouble, honestly, fitting in what we need to cover here. There's a lot of other news, like there's Jack Smith news, there's 14th Amendment news. There's just so much. We'll see. I'll keep my eye on it. Now, I do want to shout it out. I mean, I think it's important that people are watching and following it. Isaac, I'm glad that you are, certainly. And so I'll spread it here, certainly loud and clear. And other people on Locals have been following it. Uncivil Law is also covering Paxton. Okay, awesome. So Kelly Salnow, that's kind of what I was hoping for. Somebody else covering it so you can go follow along. But regardless, I do think it's very important. I think that Ken Paxton is on the good side of what we're trying to accomplish here. And so he should be supported through these efforts. So shout out to Isaac Bowles. Thanks for, if things slow down and there's nothing to talk about, I'd love to talk about it. It's not that I don't want to cover it. It's just time. But thanks, Isaac. I appreciate the plug. Make sure you're following the trial, my friends. We've got, let's see here. We got a couple other comments. MAGA Hat Stays sent this one. This one says that Joe Biden is suffering extreme depression due to the Hunter indictment. We'll see if it's extreme depression. I saw a report from, I think, the New York Times that said he was very sad. He definitely was very sad. Poor guy. MAGA Hat says the prosecutors are saying speedy trial because of public interest. Yes, in the Trump trials, they are. In the Hunter trial, I'm not sure what they're going to say. In the Georgia trial, it's the same thing. Yeah, the federal trials, they're saying America needs to know. Trump doesn't need to read the things. Joe Maz says, Rob, I hereby make the inaugural donation to the compressor limiter fund. Well, you're right. I could put a compressor on. And all right, maybe I'll have to reconfigure. I can do that right now. I don't need any money for it, but thank you, Joe Maz. I can actually do that. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. All right, you audio pros out there, tell me if I can do anything with this. All right, this is my setup. All right, this is what I'm working with right now. Gain reduction, you can see it's right here on the screen when I stop speaking. So I've got a threshold, expander, I've got a gate, I've got a compressor right here, which might be exactly what I need to turn on. Let's see if that does anything. I think it did do something. Not good, actually. So see, so that's why I get scared messing with this stuff. All right. So somebody help me, please. All right. We've got, thanks, Joe Maz. We've got Cher. What's up, Cher? Sending in a nice dono in the house. Thank you very much, Cher. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you joining us on this lovely day. Former LEO is sharing a comment, says X was right, saying the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They've got the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. Exactly. Media is very powerful. They know that. That's why they hate that Elon has taken it over. Pookie's Ma says, did you cover the Fani story on the early show? I'm late. No, we covered it here, Pookie's Ma. We covered it right here today. The Fani early this morning was the Biden flip, David Ignatius flipping on Joe Biden and basically calling for him to bail. But we covered Fani second segment today on the show today. And here we've got LAFD Rafter in the house sending in a nice dono. Thank you, LAFD, saying thank you for your coverage. Well, thanks for being here and thanks for supporting it. We couldn't do it without you. So I'm grateful that you join us when we hit it. Now, let's say hello to our friends over on X and see what's happening over there before we wrap up for our members only after party, baby, where we're going to debrief and hang out with our members for a bit. Who's over on the X? Wow, my friends, we've got 4 viewers. That means we're almost at 5. It's getting crazier every day. And we've got a couple comments. We've got, oh gosh. Yeah, Danny sends this one in, talking about climate change. Danny says, Hunter is going to get slapped down. Fred sharing an image that I won't put on the screen. James says, so let me get this straight. Hunter will have to bring his case to the Supreme Court to remove the drug user restriction to buy the gun. Is that the opposite of what the Biden administration wants to do? Yeah, I think it is. So like we might have a Supreme Court case that says that Hunter is the person responsible for greater gun rights in America. How's that for the left? Jay Howard says, do you think there's even a courtroom large enough to hold all the printed evidence without losing the defendants in the paperwork? No, I don't think so. Definitely not, because we know, at least in the federal case, there is 10 Washington monuments. So if you broke the Washington monuments and just stacked them, I mean, it's a big building if you've ever been there. It's a pretty big building. So they'd have to bring like 10 Washington monuments into the building. So 10 Washington monuments plus Big Fani's Big Fani. Whew, there's not enough room in all of Georgia for it. We've got Matthew Reese says, shouldn't we remind the Dems that Trump was only legitimately impeached once? The second hearing didn't even have the Chief Justice who was involved. And Bad Poet says, great show. Thanks, Bad Poet. I appreciate you joining in. And Drunken Senpai's over there. Feline Fun is over there. Says, even if they got to the point of indicting Joe, would he be competent to stand trial? His dementia is progressing by the day. So in the end, he'll probably get away with all the crimes. I think the best we can hope for is for Hunter to be prosecuted. And Joe, knowing his son, is going to prison. Yeah. Yes, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I think Joe Biden, certainly he has pre-dementia. I don't know how far along he is, but if he is impeached, do they need him to be even competent? I don't know. If he gets prosecuted criminally, that will come into play. We're still far ways off from that. We'll see if that happens. In order for Joe to be prosecuted, the DOJ would have to prosecute him, which means it's not going to happen while he's in charge. It'd have to be a Republican administration. Troublemaker Jonah says, every time Rob says Big Fani, I hear it as the Scottish Fani, not the North American Fani. And we have this issue as well with our friend Rai T, who's over from the UK. Apparently the UK Fani is also the same as the Scottish Fani, which is not the word that I thought it meant. So when I say Big Fani under Scottish Fani or UK Fani, it's a whole different meaning, my friends. Our American friends, it's a whole different meaning when you say Big Fani out there. All right, so just be cautious about that if you're traveling to the UK or to Scotland. All right, so those were our friends over on the X. We've got our friends on Twitter, and we had a couple final ones come in. Thanks, guys, for sending these in. Here's what else came in. Andrea Cummings says, I'm at page 198 of the Biden laptop and totally traumatized. Can I sue? LOL. I don't know. Well, don't sue Garrett. You know, he's just the messenger. Don't ever shoot the messenger. But you should sue Hunter Biden for intentional infliction of emotional distress and for being such a disgusting crackhead. Yeah, it's a pretty wild book. It's pretty wild. And even when Garrett was here, even when I'm even hesitant to flip through it. Okay, I'm even hesitant to show you the flip, and it's all censored. It's all there's no. I don't even think there's any actual nudity in there, but it's just awful. Yeah, it's just bad. So have fun, Andrea. Take a long shower when you're done. Isaac says, Uncivil is a nice guy, but he's a by-the-book lawyer. Paxton is the only state AG to sue on the 2020 sham. Uncivil's great. Yeah, no doubt about that. But I see what you're saying. I see maybe you want a little bit more support, kind of rallying behind Paxton, right? Not so much legal analysis, but a little bit more support behind him. I can understand that. And yeah, we'll see what happens to Paxton, man. I hope that there is a good outcome on that. What I did see the clip that there was I think the government rested inappropriately. They rested a little too early or something, which is hilarious. Chris is here. What's up, Chris? Says, how's it going? It's going good, Chris. Thanks for being a member, and thanks for sending in a dono. Hopefully it's going great with you too, my friend. I appreciate that. We got Stephen Mosher bringing this one in to wrap us up. Thank you, Stephen, with a very nice dono, a great member. We're grateful for you, Stephen. Thanks for supporting us as we carry on along. Isaac says, would you consider joining Uncivil's stream? I would. I have no problem joining his streams, but it's a timing thing, really. So it may not seem like it takes a lot to put this show together, but it does. I basically finish the show. As soon as I'm done with the show, I start thinking about the members stream in the morning. And as soon as the members stream in the morning is done, I start thinking about the show again. And so it's hard for me to change my sequence a bit. And when I change my sequence, it's often to the detriment of what we're doing here. So, but I would consider joining his stream on another time. I'm just, quite busy, and it's unfortunate, actually. I'm trying to solve that problem because I would like to be able to join other people's streams more. This is something I'm actively working on, by the way. And when I have these meetings, we talk about this a little bit more on Locals, but right now I'm spending a lot of time building some infrastructure for what I want us to be able to accomplish here. And so one of the things that is on my list is to be more available to hang out with other people. I love the work that all of the other law tubers are doing. I think it'd be fun to do more interviews. We set up an interview station here. I want to start elevating what we can produce here, but I also don't want to jeopardize what we're already working on. Right? I don't want to spite our coverage of our work, but in the future, it is absolutely part of the plan. And so, Isaac, I appreciate you asking about it. And, shout out to Uncivil and the work that they're doing. I'm very appreciative of all the law tubers. They keep me energized as much as you guys do. I like to see what they're doing, what they're working on. And so it's just a lot of fun to be a part of, a very cool ecosystem. So thanks, Isaac. I appreciate it. I'll try my best to see if we can squeeze some of it in, but I appreciate you shouting him out. So my friends, that is it for us on the day. We are going to wrap it up right there and head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. And we'd love to see you over there because we're going to hang out for a bit. You can also get the members only Telegram. So if you're a YouTube member, join us for this after party portion on Telegram. Go to the community tab section, navigate down, grab the Telegram link. It's a separate app. We'll see you there. Field of Greens is a great place to get your greens and your nutrition. Field of Greens, you can save 15% off with code Robert when you check out, and you'll save some money. The vegetables want to be eaten, and it tastes good going down. We've got our mods and our meme smiths that we're grateful for. Big thanks to Vienticus Prime, our friend K-Bean, Just Cause in the house, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, Zulu. We got Beyond Geo. We got Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, John McGarvey, all modding down the fort for us, along with our meme smiths, Geegum, Sleepy Dog Lee, and Nathan, N810, all in the house, memeing up the fort for us. But my friends, that is it for us on the day. We are going to leave it there. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again. And man, tomorrow is going to be Friday, and we love Friday. And so until then, my friends, I hope that you make it a beautiful night, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.